We're getting started with our new month. Somebody said, huh? Oh, we're getting started with our new month, Living Better Together. This is to get us to where we're going to have our new ministry, family ministry, couples ministry. We kind of lump them together, Living Better Together. And something we've been wanting to do. Well, it was brought up even before I got voted on about having something like this, and we're going to do it. And Kay and I already started the videos, the podcasts. We will continue those soon to help couple with that. And this month is about living better together. I told you last Sunday, one of the sermons might be winning at Family Feud. And I don't know, I got locked on that, so that's where we are, winning at Family Feud. Now listen, if you have a family, there's going to be disagreements, especially among children. My dad's not here. I don't even know if Dad knows how many times my sisters and I argue and fought, hit each other, threw each other. I mean, come on, we're children. We did those things, argued all the time. The problem is, as you mature and get older, some people still act that way among family members, among children, sometimes even parents, a lot of times couples, marriage couples. And we're going to talk about how to win at that. Because everybody wants to come out a winner in an argument, don't they? Or you wouldn't have an argument. That's the thing. A lot of times arguments people come out thinking is about winning. Not who's right or wrong. I got to win. A lot of times the answer, if you see immature people, a lot of people believe two things they want in an argument. If they were louder than the other person, or if they really told that person off. And what do they normally brag about? Well, I told her. Don't they? I told her. Did you hear me tell him? And they think they won the argument. Listen to me, and this is very important. If you don't get anything else in the sermon, anything else I say, once I say this, you can turn me off, okay? You can win an argument, but lose the person. And sometimes forever. So we're going to teach you how to win an argument. Win Family Feud. All right? We're going to be in Genesis chapter 25 first, and I'll read some scriptures. One thing I want to get to, I didn't have this before. I want us to get to how to avoid a family feud. That, to me, is, for some reason, the one that's really on my heart and the one I really want to focus on. But we'll go over these. We have, in Genesis chapter 25, the beginning of a family feud. And the families of Jacob and Isaac were what we would call nowadays a dysfunctional family, toxic family. And that's why I love the Bible. The Bible shows us and teaches us and reveals to us even things that we go through today. The Bible is not old-fashioned. People are the same if they lived 2,000 years ago or if they live today. We still have the same psychological problems and issues. We still have the same selfishness, the same feelings, everything that they were going through 2,000 years ago. The only difference is I can fly from here to London and go argue with somebody, or I can get on the internet and argue with somebody. Back then, it took a little longer. I remember seeing a cartoon, speaking of the internet. This wife's in bed and she's asking her husband, "Can you come to bed now? It's late." And he says, "I will soon. There's somebody on the internet and they're wrong." And and that's how we live our lives. So this dysfunctional family of Jacob in chapter 25 is a perfect example of when parents display favoritism. Jacob, said Isaac here, and Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And so you got the two sides. The mother loved one son because of who he was, and Isaac loved the other son because of who he was, and you have a split, do you not? One had favoritism towards one son, and the other one had favoritism towards the other. One was a daddy's boy, the other one was a mama's boy. And it was displayed through their whole lives. And it was understood and it was known. Dad loves you more. Or, as the Smothers Brothers used to say, Mom loves you more. And if you don't know who they were, I'm sorry. Mom loves you more. And it was known. And that created conflict in the family. And even to a point where Jacob, when he deceived his brother and took his birthright, and it was time for Isaac to give the blessing, the mother wanted her son to be the head of the household. And Isaac, being right, Esau was the oldest, was going to give it to Esau. And mom and son come up with a way to deceive Isaac. Does this sound like a healthy family? Deceive Isaac to give the blessing to Jacob. And of course, when Esau finds out, what does Esau say? I'm going to kill my brother. But all this was festered up by favoritism. One loved one over the other. Some of you are going to have more than one child, and some of you have more than one child. And there's always that one child that's born first, and that memory will always be different than the others. It did in my life. By the time I'm having Justin and my daughter, I'm old. This is old news. I remember, this is going to sound gross, but we're adults. I remember back when I was having babies, I didn't have it, but you know what I mean. They used to say, do you want to cut the umbilical cord? With Jonathan, they said, do you want to cut the umbilical cord? I said, no way. Don't want anything to do with that. The second baby, Justin, they asked if I want to, yeah, let me cut it. I went over and I cut it. The third baby, the doctor asked me to get out of the way so he could do his work. I mean, you just get, there was something special about that firstborn, and I understand that. But we are to never treat our children differently than each other. They should never say, there should never be a hint of, I love one more than the other. That will fester up in hatred and bitterness and ugliness that will always come out. I have here, it says, I put down, love your children for the individual that they are. One thing I learned real fast when we had the second baby, how different they can be. Now, Jonathan was a very quiet, obedient baby. Things were great. To have the second child, I even remember saying to people, I don't know why people are complaining about having babies. This is simple. And God says, I want to show you. And he gave me Justin, who was not quiet, who was not obedient, who drove me nuts. Two different kinds of people. Jonathan would want his diaper changed, demanded it. Justin would run around and that thing would be hanging down to his knees. Didn't care. I mean, so many differences. But you have to love them for who they are. One of the saddest things to say to a child is, I wish you were more like your sister or your brother. They can't be because they're not. They are who they are. The Bible shows us this. The hatred, the bitterness, the threat of murder all came from favoritism by mom and dad. I'm not speaking out of turn when I talk about this. This is Bible. Love them for who they are. Yes, Esau was a hunter, and that appealed to Isaac. That's who he was, and a man's man. He was a hairy man. He was built strong. He was a man's man. That's my boy. But so was Jacob, who liked to cook and be around the house. One of the difficult things as a father, I can speak as a father, is when I was younger, I was Mr. Athlete. I have trophies that say Athlete of the Year. I don't have them anymore. As you get older, they don't mean as much. I was Athlete of the Year 3 years in a row. All the sports. I love basketball. I love baseball. I would play soccer to do something. I tried football. I love football. If they could make a rule, nobody could hit me. They didn't make that rule, so I had to quit. I was Mr. Sports. And so when my sons were born, I'm thinking, guess what? They're going to be just like me. They got ask them about, they hate sports. I can't even get them to sit down and watch it with me. But I have to love them for who they are. Not the individual I want them to be. And so many parents will push and prod and pull kids to be in the image or person they want them to be. You don't think that causes troubles and issues? You don't think that comes back later? You've never accepted who I was or who I am. You never encouraged what I am. I have one son. He loves to draw and computers and all those things. And that's who he is. I remember when he came to me, and this happens, by the way, and thank God I was smarter than this. He came to me one time and he was very concerned. Jonathan came to me. He was really concerned. He said, we need to talk. And whenever Jonathan says that, I know it's happened like I can count on my fingers. And I knew this was important. He's not a big talker. So I said, okay, let's sit down. He goes, what's up? What's bothering you? And with a little tear in his eye, John, I can talk about this. He's not here. With a tear in his eye, he said, Dad, I don't want to be a preacher. I said, what? Because I don't want to be a preacher. I said, you don't have to be. And this relief came all over him. I said, Jonathan, all I want you to do in life is whatever you choose to be a good Christian. I want you to be a good Christian. Whatever it is you choose in life, that's between you and God. He goes, oh, I thought for sure you were going to want me to be a preacher. Well, deep inside, I'd love that. I would. That's my son. Who wouldn't like to say, here's my son, he's going to preach us today. But that's not who he is. And I shouldn't demand that and pull, because he'll end up hating it and hating me. Love your children for the individual they are, not the one you want them to be. By the way, love your spouse for the individual that they are, not the one you want them to be. So many times, I think it's mostly women, they marry men thinking what? Well, he's got this and that, but I'll what? Change him. Do you know how much men love to be changed? We're pretty content. Men will have a single man will have the same couch, the same chair, sitting in the same spot, the same paint on the walls for 10, 12 years. That's who we are. How long? 20. We're not big on change. I still have it. Kay she wants to throw away this one shirt. I love that shirt. I've had that shirt way before even my kids were born. So in the early 90s. It's an IU shirt. It's all tattered, but I love it. I love my chair that I have. We don't like change. And so automatically you have what? Conflict. Because you can't love them for the individual that they are. You want to change them. You want them to become the individual that you want them to be. And you don't think that will cause trouble? Now, I'm not talking about major sin and major ethical problems or moral issues. I'm talking about who they are. We have men here who love to hunt. We have men here who love to do mechanic stuff. We have men, everybody's different. They love different things. That's who they are. Love them for who they are, not what you want them to be. I've seen it happen. I've seen women try to, and I'm talking from a man's point, I think men probably do it too. But I've seen women say, yeah, he loves to do this, but that doesn't make as much money. I want him to do this. I've seen women push men into jobs that they were miserable in because of money. And that man was miserable. He was a lot happier in the job that he was at. Why can't you just leave him alone? Love your children, love your spouse for the individual that they are, not for the individual you want to be. Then we read on, you think Jacob would have learned this valuable lesson, right, about favoritism? No, he did not. Jacob had a special son that he loved. He had 12 sons. He had one son he loved more than anyone, and everyone knew it. Anybody think that did not cause a problem? It sure enough did. So much so that he bought this son, Joseph, a coat of many colors. Now to us, that wouldn't matter a whole lot, so we'll just say he bought him a brand new Ford Mustang, but not the rest. And he went everywhere in that Ford Mustang. Where'd you get that car? My dad bought it for me. I mean, it's almost the equivalent of having a coat, not just of one color, but many colors. And that's how flashy and expensive it was. And his brothers saw that. Can you imagine if you're in your family and your dad bought one of your siblings a brand new car and you got nothing? And they drove that to school and they drove it all around. And you're just okay with that? Jacob didn't learn. Listen to me. There's so many family cycles. Teenage pregnancy. Did you know that's a big cycle? Odds are, if your mother was a teenager who got pregnant out of wedlock, odds are, as a daughter, that's what's going to happen with you. The odds are stacked against you. It's a cycle. Odds are, if your mom and your dad were a drug addict or an alcoholic or drank a lot, guess what? Odds are you're going to be a part of that cycle. Someone has to break that cycle. It would have been great if Jacob said, I'll break that cycle. But he did not. He had a favorite too. And so what happens is of course, his brothers become jealous, and they arrange for him to be sold into slavery. They even discuss to kill him. Listen, parents, you don't know what hatred you are fostering in your children. Grandparents, too. In your children. To a point they wanted to kill him because of their jealousy, because somebody, a parent, or grandparent picked somebody that was their favorite. And they were going to kill him, and they discussed that, and they eventually sold him into slavery. Get rid of him completely. He's gone. They even told Dad that he was killed by a wild animal. They didn't quite tell it, but they abundantly implied it. And so we have here, family is not a place of competition. Don't make it a competition. but a place of encouragement and growth. Encourage each other and help each other grow. That's what a family is to be. It's not a competition. You know, Jonathan used to get straight A's. What made me sick is without very little effort, he would get straight A's. If Jonathan brought home a B, him and I were having a discussion. Because I know he can get what? An A. Justin? If he got a C, we went to McDonald's and celebrated. Right, Justin? Woohoo! Because I knew he did his best. It had nothing to do with the letter grade. It's the effort. And he would bring home C's and say, Dad, look at my C. And we'd have a blast. And we'd celebrate Jonathan's A's just as much as we would celebrate Justin's C's. Because it's not a competition. The question is the effort there? That's what I wanted to see. And you don't pit brother versus brother or daughter versus daughter of who's doing the best and who's doing better. And you don't do that. Family is not a competition. It's a place of encouragement and growth. And if they're not encouraged, they'll remember that when they're in their 30s. Trust me, I know. In their 40s. Trust me, I know. In their 50s. Still remember it. Instead of being encouraged, they were put down, called names, called lazy. I remember, this is not my story, but I remember a boy, they would call him lazy. Mom and Dad called him lazy all the time. They put him in a Christian school and hoping maybe some discipline would get him going. And I remember watching him read one day, and I said, has this boy ever been tested for that thing where you read backwards? Somebody help me. Dyslexia. Yeah, dyslexia. Has he ever been? Come find out he wasn't lazy. He had an issue. But do you think to this day, I know he's in his mid-20s now, do you think he remembers Mom and Dad calling him lazy? Yeah, he does. Family is to be a place of encouragement and growth. Encouragement and growth to your spouse also. Encourage your spouse in that individuality that they have and the things that they want to do. If they want to start a business, get involved with them, encourage them, show them, be a part of it. If they want to change jobs and it's legit, then encourage them. You should be able to go home and find encouragement and growth. We want you to grow as a person. We want you to do better. And I know you can do better. And here's some things. I know my wife wants to start her own business. And it has to do with baskets and decoration, and I don't know. I'm doing the best I can with all of it. But for her birthday, one way to show her that I am encouraging her in this, she's been trying to get a work table, and I bought her one. And I said, you're going to be so surprised. And that was my way. I had no clue about this business and what it involves, but I know she wanted a work table. I got a quilter's table, by the way, because it has the lines on it and the measurements so she can measure. I almost asked you about it, but I had to buy it right away. But anyhow, she's a quilter, by the way. To encourage her, I'm with you on this. I even talked to her this morning. I said, we may have to buy a cargo van for you to carry your stuff in. I mean, I'm encouraging her to grow. And that is what a family is to be. And then we find that Joseph's brothers hated him. They wanted to kill him. They sold him to slavery. And so we can read on to that because I want to get to the three things. I have here, a family is to be a safe place where each person is allowed to thrive. To thrive. Many times, spouses become jealous of each other. One is having a little more success than the other, and they become jealous. Siblings become jealous because one might be doing a little more successful than the other. We as parents and as a family need to be a place where you allow people to thrive. I knew a lady who had a son loved to draw. Everywhere. Every wall. She ended up getting that paint that you can draw on, that you can just wipe away. I don't know what it's called or anything. And I remember being young, a little younger, but I remember hearing about that, and I asked her about it. I said, aren't you just encouraging him to draw on walls? No, he knows this is his wall. But what I'm trying to do is encourage him to draw, to thrive, to be an artist. If that's what he loves, thrive. Do little things, do great things, do big things to encourage others, have a ability and allow them to thrive as a person. There's no room in a family for jealousy. A lot of times it happens I can just say it, a lot of times it happens when the woman's making more money than the man. And the man wants to try to pull her down. Stop all that. Not me. My wife makes more money than me. I say, go for it. Make even more. That would be great. Go make some more. Thrive. Be all that you can be. A safe place where you can thrive. Listen to me. Out there in the world, especially the business world, and Bob can attest to this, not too many people or too many businesses are a safe place to thrive. There's always people that want to pull you down and take you down. If they start seeing you move up, oh wow, they get scared and they'll start hitting on you. Home should not be that place. Should not be. Go for it. You're good at this. How can we help you? Because we want to see you be successful and thrive. This family, this dysfunctional family from Isaac to Jacob was not like that. Nobody could thrive. So let's quickly go over how to win at Family Feud. Joseph was the man. Joseph was the man. And all that happened to him, they raised his hand and said, we will stop this cycle. This is not going to happen anymore. So how did he do it? How did he stop the feud? Well, as we read through, and you can look these up, he separated himself from the situation in his family. Actually, he didn't do it personally. God allowed it for him to be separated from his family. And that's what you got to do sometimes. Get out of the situation. Walk away. Get out of it. Sometimes that's the only step, by the way. Sometimes you got to get away, love them, forgive them, but from a distance. Because some people don't want to live peacefully. And the hatred and the bitterness and the anger makes it difficult to be a part of that person's life. It happens. But first, he got out of the situation. And he went to Egypt. And he had a different point of view about life than the brothers did. Number 2, he remained faithful to God. Here's Joseph. And the whole time, if you read his story, he never forsook God. He had plenty of excuses to do that. He goes and he's sold into slavery. And he could say, God, you've abandoned me. I'm done with you. But he did not. He went and was sold as a slave, went to Potter's house, and there he rose in the ranks as a slave. But then he was lied about, And he was thrown into prison. And then Joseph could have said, God, here, you abandoned me again. But no, he did not. He stayed faithful to God. And there he rose in the ranks as a prisoner. And he was a prisoner, top prisoner, helped the guards and all that. And God blessed him and made him the number 2 man of all of Egypt. Pharaoh and then him. Because he stayed faithful to God. Again, what does that mean? In our terms, in our lives, it's read your Bible every day. Whether you feel like it or not. Have your prayer time with God every day. Whether you feel like it or not. Go to church. I teach this to little kids and they'll say, every day. Well, no. As often as you can. Go to church. When you feel like it or not. And you don't always feel like doing these things. Life is hard. It's difficult. But stay faithful to God. Next one, serve others. Do your good works. Minister to others. You do those 4 things, you're being faithful to your God. No matter what anybody else is saying, no matter what anybody else is doing. And so if there's an issue in your family, a struggle in your family, make sure you can try to pull yourself away from that situation so you don't have the same attitude, the same mind. Even if it's just for a little while. Number 2, stay faithful to God. Number 3, he advanced himself in education and work. He went and bettered himself. He bettered himself. Look at Proverbs chapter 10, verse 14 about that. Keep learning. I have a quote. I used to say, I'm not done learning. I'm not done learning. Even at my age, I keep saying, I'm not done learning. And then somebody went to Italy and came back and they got me a plaque. It says, I'm not done learning. I didn't know that was a quote. I just made it up myself. And then it said Michelangelo. Wow. I'm not done learning. Keep bettering yourself. No matter what anybody says or does or puts you down, you're going to win at this. Keep bettering yourself. Number 4 is the hardest one. He forgave everyone for everything. He forgave everyone for everything. Joseph had a forgiving heart. Didn't matter what his brothers did to him. Didn't matter that they lied. He forgave them. Didn't matter he was betrayed. He forgave them of everything. Forgiveness will end a lot of problems. Well, you don't know what they said about me. I don't care. Forgive them. You don't know what they did. I don't care. Forgive them. You want to end the cycle? You want to end the feud? Be the person who forgives. Forgives. It'll cure a lot of bitterness and anger in your heart and life. Your heart and life. They can go be angry. They can go be hateful. They can be all bitter. But I forgive them, and I'm not. I'm not. Number 5, he was motivated by compassion, not anger. Motivation. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it motivated out of anger? Did I say this out of anger? Did I do this out of anger? Did I do whatever out of anger? Or am I doing it out of compassion? A lot of times what you'll say and do will change what you're feeling. The Bible says, be angry and sin not. That means you can't control whether something makes you angry. You cannot. And there are a lot of little things that will make you angry. For instance, this morning I was doing something, and my wife says, if you want me to like you the rest of the day, please stop. I thought that was a cute way to say, stop that. We'll have little things that'll just make us angry. Don't be motivated by that anger. Be motivated by compassion instead. Joseph had compassion on his brothers. They thought he was going to do something to them because he was angry. They were afraid that he was going to kill them or at least throw them in jail. That's what they feared. And he had the authority to say, kill them, and they were dead. But he was motivated by compassion instead of anger. You want to win this family feud? Be motivated by compassion, not anger. Remember, whatever they said, whatever they did, that's still a person. Does God love that person? Yes, he does. What does God expect me to do? Love that person. Again, it might be from a distance, some of them, but I'm to love them and be motivated by compassion, not anger. Number 6, he allowed himself to be used by God to be a blessing to those that hurt him. He could have just sent his brothers home. They came to get food. He could have just sent them home with no food. But instead, he wanted to be a blessing to those that hurt him. And he had them all come live with him in Egypt. Bring Dad. Bring everyone. You can live in my house. I'm going to take care of you because I can. And Joseph broke that cycle by doing these things. You want to break the cycle of family feud in your family? Could be brother versus brother, sister versus sister. It could be parent versus son, daughter. I'm not naive. It's everywhere. All of us. We want to break that. We got to follow these 6 things. Separate yourself from the situation. Remain faithful to God. Advance yourself. Educate yourself. Do yourself better. Become better. Forgive everyone for everything. Be motivated by compassion, not by anger. And allow yourself to bless those that hurt you. To love those that hate you. That'll break the cycle. I will not get to the next 3. I may talk about that next week. It's something new I want to share with us. And I'll have it next week. You can read there how to avoid family feud. We've run out of time. But next week we'll talk about it. You want to win a family feud, God has a way. But somebody has to break the cycle. Even at the moment in time you're in it right now, somebody, let's say it this way, has to be the bigger person and break the cycle. Let that someone be you, especially if you're a Christian, because we're supposed to be different and act different. Take these suggestions, read these verses in Proverbs, and you'll break the cycle. And you can fix, you can win at the feud. Let us